Welcome to the Woman Who Makes Things Happen show. My name is Agnes van Rhijn. I'm a life and business success strategist at Success on Your Own Terms, where I help entrepreneurs and small business owners create success, but on their own terms. I help them implement mindset, strategies, systems, and tools so that they can start working on their business and no longer in it. Today, it's my privilege to be interviewing Jacqueline Rogers. Jacqueline is a networking strategist, a business mentor, speaker, trainer, serial entrepreneur, and the founder of the Athena Network, a vibrant, fast-growing, leading international networking, training, and development business club for female executives and entrepreneurs. She also helped women entrepreneurs and executives to create a purposeful business. These are women who are committed to making a meaningful contribution through their business and who have a desire to live an extraordinary life. Her life's work is supporting them to achieve their entrepreneurial dreams and reconnecting with their genius. Welcome to the Woman Who Makes Things Happen show, Jacqueline. How are you?
I'm really well, Agnes, and thank you for inviting me. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I mean, it's amazing, of course, because I just joined the Athena Network on January 1st, so I could not interview you. You are definitely a good example for me of what women can be following. So tell us more about it. What
was so wonderful about you joining on January the 1st? You actually joined us in our 10th year.
Yes.
Of business. So that was fabulous. So what I can tell you is that the Athena Network was launched 10 years ago. And it was launched because I couldn't find what I was looking for. And I would say that that's fairly common with most of the female, if not all of the female entrepreneurs that I speak to. One of the questions I love to ask is, so how did you start your business? And I go, I couldn't find what I was looking for. And so I started it myself. And that's the truth about Athena. I was really disappointed with the networking events that I was going to. They weren't quite, even the ones that I was kind of enjoying, they weren't ticking all of my boxes. Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair, I didn't know what all of the boxes were. I didn't know what it was I was looking for. I just knew that this wasn't it. And I was really lucky, well, not lucky, but committed to be working with a business coach and a mentor. I recommend that to anybody who's in business, men, women. And I was working with a business mentor who I think just got fed up of hearing me talk about how I wasn't enjoying all of these networking events and said, well, look, with the skills and resources you've got, why don't you just go and create it?
Just do it.
Of course, why wouldn't you do that? And I think it was after one particular, if I was running the event, this is what I would do, And actually, it was a really useful question, a really useful question to ask me, because I internalized that. And I thought, yeah, why not? That it was little things that weren't being done the way that I think was supportive of women in business. And sometimes it was small things. I remember going to a speed networking event, for example, and it was great for the men because they were just putting their business cards in one pocket and, they had their wine or their beer in their other hand and a hand free to shake. And women were there with their no pockets, a handbag, a glass, nothing to do. And that was one of those occasions where I thought, if ever I was to run this event, I would have a handbag station. Crazy thing like that, which we have subsequently done actually with Athena events. We've hosted Nifty Networking, and there's always a handbag station where just leave your bag here, don't worry about it, and we do it slightly differently. But yeah, the Athena Network was created as a result of not finding what I wanted. And then what quickly became apparent was that launching it in home counties wasn't going to be enough. Other women would definitely benefit from what was being delivered. So I took myself on a massive learning curve, finding out more about franchising and how you would franchise a business. Mm-hmm. Now that sounds like that came left field. It didn't, to back up the story. When I was transitioning from the corporate environment and into setting up my own business, one of the books that I'd been recommended to read was The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Mm-hmm. And reading that book truly inspired me to think about whatever business I was going to create, I would create it with such an infrastructure that it could be replicated and it would be easy for anybody else to become involved in the business, to be able to take on tasks that were in the business. And then when you've got that model that can be replicated, then you're in the field of being able to license or franchise or even white label your business if that's what you choose to do as well. But the one thing that I love, well, there were many things I love from that book, but one of the things that I truly love were Michael says, you set up your business as if you were going to sell it. Yeah. Now, it's not to say you are going to sell it, no, but you set up and run it as if you were going to sell it. So
I remember
that supported me.
Yeah, I saw him speaking around that topic in the US at an event I was participating. Yes, and I do remember him telling that. Yeah, very interesting concept. So it's interesting. So there are multiple things in what you're saying. Obviously, one of them being that women definitely don't network the same way men do, and maybe we can come back on that later. But in terms of challenges that you have been facing when setting up all that, going from the idea in essence to making it happen, what did you find were your biggest challenges?
The first challenge that I had was an identity challenge, and that was because I was transitioning out of the corporate sector, and transitioning from a corporate sector with a very successful career, and making the choice to actually come out of that as well. I then didn't know who I was. It's because I'd always been defined by this personality that was in this corporate role. And also I'd had people around me all the time. And I'd had a community, albeit a very dysfunctional community, because that was one of the reasons that I was leaving. But it was a dysfunctional community, but nevertheless, it still was one that I had. So that was my first challenge. I didn't know who I was.
I find that very interesting because it's the first time in this series of interviews, and you are number 68, I think, if I remember well, that someone mentions that, and I absolutely do remember that the same when I transitioned from corporate to setting up my own business. That's a very, very interesting point. How did you address it?
Well, really, the addressing it was the networking. I'm a serviceman's daughter, so I'm used to community. I've been grown. It's funny when I look at my life, I look back on my life. It's no surprise that I'm running a franchise because I've created a replicable community. You know, as a serviceman's daughter, whenever my father was posted, we would move to a home that looked almost exactly the same as the one that we were in before, and the purpose being that the military wanted the families to settle in quickly. So the way that you settle in quickly is to create a familiar environment. So all of the bases that we lived on, there were very specific things that were in place. You know, we had the NAFI, which was our store. There was the youth club. There was the Cubs group. You know, all of the activities that were happening. It was, you could go to any one of these bases and you would find the same infrastructure. Yeah. So that was the bit that I was actually missing, because even coming out from, leaving that environment when my marriage broke up and coming back to the UK, then I didn't have that infrastructure, but I found it very quickly because I went into this corporate role. So, and the corporate role provided me with a familiarity, dysfunctional or not, but it provided me with the familiarity. It provided me with a routine. And then coming out of that and going into business on my own, you know, there's of course there's a familiarity with my home, which is where I set up my business originally, you know, my office, working from there. But I'm talking about the structure, you know, what do I do? How do I do it? For example, in the role I had, I did not make any sales calls. I did not do any telemarketing. We had a team that did that. We had a marketing department. So I would go and I would be in front of clients who had already been prepared for my arrival.
Pre-sold almost.
Yeah, really. So, you know, I just really needed to do my thing. And if I did it well, then that was great. You know, then everybody was happy. But I didn't have any of that. I didn't have the infrastructure that I had in the corporate sector. I certainly didn't have the infrastructure that I had in the military environment. You know, you're very, very safe and protected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they really look after their families. And so, you know, that was certainly my experience. And so that's what I mean about my identity. I wasn't a serviceman's daughter anymore. I wasn't a serviceman's wife. I was not Jacqueline Rogers, you know, a key accounts consultant. Who was I? I didn't even know what name to give what I was doing. My niche. And so there was a lot of angst. And that's why working with a coach, working with somebody like yourself to enable you to transition from that kind of role into entrepreneurship, I think is absolutely invaluable.
Oh yeah, it would have saved me years if I would have known when I did it. Yeah. Because I was still living in France there. They're in essence 15 years behind when it comes to coaching. So back then there was no such a thing, or hardly, as coaching for entrepreneurs. I mean, it was just, you know, executive coaching, that type of stuff. That's all there was. It would have saved me a tremendous amount of years, definitely.
It was the best thing that I did. I mean, you know, one of the things, I was very lucky because I went through a resettlement program because I volunteered for redundancy. So, you know, because I was working with the Thomson Group, which is now Reuters, and so their responsibility was to make you, make available for you a resettlement program. So I had that, but I also chose to work with a business coach of my own choice as well. So I was quite greedy, you know, it was available. And I kind of used every opportunity, and I just soaked up books like Revisited, 4-Hour Work Week, Stephen Covey's books, you know, anything and everything to do with entrepreneurship. You know, there was then, and there certainly are now, some amazing books that were coming out. But to work with a coach was, for me, the best thing.
So other than that identity problem, anything major that you would want to mention that you?
Well, I think that there's the financial impact as well. You know, I had a really great paycheck, and you know, to the degree that I'd open up my paycheck and go, oh, I don't even know where that money's come from, because there'd be a cheeky bonus there that was just there. I didn't always know what it was there for either. So there was that lack of continuity, the lack of somebody else paying me. Actually, the glaring awareness that actually the person responsible for paying me was me, that was quite frightening. And when I did set up, then the one thing that I'd originally set out to do was to be running my own training and development company, because that's the environment that I know, that's what I'm very comfortable with, and I loved being in it as well. But it was as a result of going networking and not finding what I was wanting, as I explained earlier, that the Athena Network was created. When that was created, that in and of itself caused some real challenges, because I was going into an industry that I didn't know, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. I would recommend, you know, if you were to read the E-Myth Revisited, he does actually state it's much better to go in an industry that you're not so familiar with, and then you don't become the technician and work in your own business. It's a bit like if you're a hairdresser and then you set up on your own and you set up as a hairdresser, you don't actually get the expansion of all the other roles you could be, i.e. the CEO of your own salon, for example. So, you know, the challenges, the key challenge that I had when I did first start up, I made the mistake, for me, not for everybody, but I made the mistake for me of going into partnership with another lady. And, you know, after remortgaging my own home and covering debt that she'd already brought in from another business, I quickly realised that what we were both going for was not in alignment. And that was a real shame, because... And that's
what, sorry, that to understand, that was Athena, that was not your own business.
Athena. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because the coaching and the coaching and development, I do that, but that's within the scope of what I'm doing within the Athena Network. Yeah. So, I think that the financial challenges that entrepreneurs face when they first start up, they can't be avoided. You have to be aware of what expenses are going to be in the beginning. So it's interesting, you know, I resolved the identity issue because I created my own community. So then I had identity again. And some other work that I did as well, some personal development. But then setting up a business with the anticipated growth that I had in mind is incredibly expensive, particularly when you're franchising. Because with franchising, there is trademarking, really protecting your brand. When you're franchising, you're needing to really go legal. If I was to have my time all over again, I would still do that, because I've been asked before, was there an easier way to do it? Yes, there was. It could have been licensed, but then the brand would not have been as strong. Because there isn't as much hold over a license as there is over a franchise. And it was really important for me at that time to experience the longevity of a brand as well. So to build it as if I was going to sell it, I have no intention of that, but as if I was, meant I needed to continually invest in it as well. So I think that, the financial challenges for like the first 6 years probably were tough, because I was comparing it with what I used to earn. So my 6-figure salary wasn't available to me anymore. So that was tough. That was really, really tough.
I must say that I've had two pieces in my business. One where, so that I started up my business 8-9 years ago, but the first years I've been working as an executive coach, mainly as a subcontractor. So money was safe, quote unquote. It wasn't comparing to the level I had before when I was in the corporate world. However, it still was a very good income. It's when I made the choice after that to no longer work with the corporate world that it became more complicated. But in my case, I must say that what, quote unquote, saved me is that the kids were gone. So it was me and myself. So the pressure is not the same, of course, than when you think, okay, I still have, the study of my kids or whatever age they are, that is still requiring a lot of your income. So yes, that did make a significant difference. So that stress was different. Let's put it this way. So if we come back to Athena, because obviously I'm fascinated by it. I love it.
Of course.
I really like the brand. I really like the structure it brings, the consistency of branding, etc. As I told you, one of the expertise areas I have is a personal branding strategist. So I definitely understand that importance. Let's come back to why we believe, I say we because I'm convinced of it, women network differently. What would you say about that?
I think what's most obvious to me about women networking differently is that they are more focused on building the relationships, true relationships. And I'm not going to say for 1 minute that I don't believe men do, because equally there are men that I network with who have the same kind of ethos. But there's a certain nurturing about women building relationships. They're committed to the long term, if you like. I'll give you an example. When I was at my meeting today, I still go to Athena meetings. I think it's very important for me as the franchisor to still be at the meetings, and then I've got the experience of being in meetings and working with members so that I can be of even more support to regional directors, our franchisee, like yourself. And what's really obvious to me when I'm in any one of these meetings is that 1 minute we're talking about high profile business and turnover and what's been happening and the real big expansion within a business, and then the next moment I'm very aware that there can be a business woman who's needing some emotional support because things have been going on in her family. So it's so diverse what women bring to networking. That's trying to sort of squeeze a rugby player's boot into a ballerina's shoe, trying to explain all of that. But it is the diversity of what we have to offer women in general, what they're bringing to the table. So there's cheers and tears, I think, at an Athena meeting. There's the wins, the wows and the woes as well. And every part of that is celebrated. And every woman is absolutely supported. And that was based on my experience of when I was networking before, 10, 12 years ago when I first started, until Athena, that I just wasn't getting that. I didn't feel that anybody was really interested in me as an individual. I just felt like I had, but sell me something on my forehead, whereas actually what I realized with us is that, women, is they're much more likely to build the relationship. So there's more of a consultative soft sell, if you like.
Yeah.
But they're going to try and sell. They're going to build relationships because that's what we teach them to do.
Absolutely. And that is why it also works so extremely well for me, is because I have a very holistic approach to the work I'm doing at Success on Your Own Terms. That's what I bring to the table also with the Athena Network. It's all about building a community of women who love to learn, share, grow together, and support each other. That's really a difference. So if we come back to the type of challenges that women are facing when they want to go after the dreams, or set up their own business, transition from corporate to setting up their business, or they have all of a sudden life stood in the way, they have to reinvent themselves. Quite often what I've seen for myself, but also what I see with my clients, is that there is this tendency to believe that we're alone in what's happening to us. And so that's stopping us also from daring. What would you say to those women?
Well, the first thing I would say, no surprise, is get yourself a coach. I think that goes without saying. And also join a really strong network. I had a lady as an example. She came to one of the meetings earlier on this week, who is right at the beginning of starting up her business. And I've worked with women in the Athena Network who have been in the same position, and now we're talking about 2 years later, and how their business has evolved because they've had just the right people around them to enable them to develop their business. So no surprises, get yourself a coach, have a really strong network of female entrepreneurs around you who are going to be able to support you. But I'd also, one of the other things I would do is to, whenever I'm working with somebody, is to just check in with them. That are they doing what they would really, really love to do? Are they doing it because they think that that's the only thing that they're capable of doing? Which comes, again, it comes back to, do you want to be the technician within your business, or do you want to be the CEO of your business? And I'll speak to sole traders and go, well, I'm the only person in here. It's like, great, you're the CEO of your own business. So that's something to aspire to. Yeah. So it's really checking in with them for that, because over the years with Athena, we've seen ladies come in who thought that the business they were going to run and present was X, and then after the first couple of meetings realized they have absolutely no passion for it, but it's how they thought they were going to make a living. And I would invite everybody, men and women, to be courageous, be bold, be bodacious, and actually do something that you would love to do rather than what you feel you have to do.
There's also this pressure from people around you, and to come back to that example of me having set up my business, in fact, in 2 phases, I had this pressure from everyone saying, okay, you've had 25 years in the corporate world, go and work with the corporate world. And I've told that story a few times already. I may repeat myself on the interview, but I, in essence, ended up working with the corporate world only by fear of financial insecurity, and because everyone was telling me that I should do it. Where in reality, I loved what I was doing, but I didn't like the environment I was doing it in. And that's when 2 years ago I started this process of reconsidering all my choices in life and business, and decided that no, I didn't want this anymore. And I had this very scary situation where I can see myself picking up my phone. I had this very big oil and gas company client in Budapest. I had been working with them for 18 months, had arrived at the end of an assignment. We were starting with something new, and I called them and I said, no, I'm not continuing. It was big money. And it really meant that nothing else would come in, because I would start from scratch, quote unquote, because it's never from scratch, but with a new target audience. I had to rebuild it. And I did that. I had that scary step of saying, no, this is not in alignment. This is not okay. This is not who I am. Doesn't work for me. And since everything is going upwards. So, very, very good.
That's the thing, Agnes, when you are true to yourself, it can feel tough. It can feel like you're just pushing against treacle and nothing's happening. But when you're focused on what it is that you would love and you're taking action, I mean, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute you just sit there meditating and hope it's all going to happen. No, I'm not from that. I love to meditate. That's one of my keep sane strategies. I don't believe that you just sit there, visualize, meditate, and it's all going to come. That plus action, plus reminding yourself of what it is that you would really love, are what have enabled you certainly to keep propelling forward. And it can feel like you're never getting anywhere. But, that tension of, like, for me, where's my six-figure salary gone? Where's my shiny new car every 2 years in the driveway gone? Where's all of the trappings? And they don't call it trappings for nothing. Where have all those trappings gone? Because sometimes that seems like the much safer option, that you actually, what you would do is go, oh, you know what, why don't I just get myself involved in that again? And like you, I don't know if you ever did it, but sometimes when the tension was too much, I was like, why am I doing this? Because some days it seems really, really tough. And then I'd have a moment of thinking about going back into that environment. And then I remember why I left. And I was really ill. I just exhausted myself. I didn't know the colour of my own front door. I would leave so early, get home so late. It's interesting that I would say something like I had no identity, because the truth was I didn't even know myself by the time I'd left that environment. But when things are really tough at the beginning, that can feel the behind that can feel safer, because it's what you know. And that's why I say, I really invite women to be bold and just to keep going for what it is you love. And I completely understand that can lose traction sometimes, and that's why you need to work with a coach, because they remind you of why you're doing it.
It's interesting, because I did experience the same when I arrived in London. So most people know, because I don't hide it, that I arrived in London with nothing, because I'd lost everything. So I contacted all my networks, and one of the big networks that I have in the UK is my corporate network from when I was working in corporate world. And so I remember that one of my former colleagues introduced me with a consultancy firm where I had the possibility to collaborate with them, potentially to work with corporate clients again. So I went after it. I went to the meeting, and I stepped out of the meeting, and I said, no way. I was physically sick. The simple thought of going there again, and I didn't do it. So, but it would have been a safe route, as you say. So it's very tempting, but no, it doesn't work and our body tells us a lot. I was physically
exactly. And it's interesting, I just recently had this like bug that's been going on for a month, and you say your body tells you a lot. I also get tested by my body as well, so it's like when I'm going bigger, when my plans get bolder, then I kind of get this cough, cold thing. And I always know where it's going to manifest in my body. I go, oh, well, that's interesting. And it's, to a degree, it's kind of like it's holding me back. But for me, it's like the signal to move forward. Yeah. That's very perverse, but that's what works for me. It's just no surprise. It's not pleasant as you're going through it. But, I can never promise to anybody that I work with that everything's going to be okay. They're going to be making the money that they desire. And frankly, I think you can't. No coach can do that, because we are not in their head all the time. So, if I was, maybe I could make guarantees. But so for me, it's that my body is a really strong signal. It's interesting you say that.
No, I have that absolutely also. It's in fact what you're referring to is what in the coaching world is identified as the ULP, an upper limit problem, and that translates into the body. Yes, definitely. Time is moving forward as usual, and so before I forget, where can people find you? What is it that you want to give?
Well, the quickest, easiest way, of course, is to go to the Athena website, which is the athenanetwork.com, and you can click on pretty much any one of the pages and they'll be able to find out more about me. I have my own Facebook profile as well. Again, just put my name in there and you'd be able to find me. Likewise on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah.
So, all regional directors have got that availability to go. And so for anybody who wants to find out where I am or any of the other team, including yourself, Agnes, with Athena, just go and click on the Meet the Team and then you'll be able to connect with us all.
Absolutely. Is there any final tip you want to give to the viewers?
Do you know, the one thing that I would say, it's not so much a tip, but kind of a tip. I love working with startups. That really excites me when we get somebody coming into the Athena Network who's just setting up their business. And the one thing that I would say to anybody who might be watching now, who is considering starting up their own business and is full of fear, is to be bold enough to go for it. If this is what you truly love, it's not because you think you might make more money at it or it's going to be an easier life for you. But if there's something that you've always wanted, dreamed to do, and you've never dared not to for whatever reason, don't let that stop you. Go for it. Because some of the most exciting women I work with are the ones who have been bold and been bodacious and moved forward and they've engaged their own coach so that they can make sure that it happens. So don't sit on it. I would really dislike for anybody to go years ahead. Oh, I wish
regrets.
Regrets. It's just not worth it. Look, I'm not going to promise that every day you're skipping through the bluebells because you're not as an entrepreneur. That's it. The buck stops with you every day. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, in the whole of the 10 years, what I can say is whilst I have sometimes gone, why did I stop my corporate job and, the salary? I've never regretted taking that, ever.
I have the same, absolutely. And on my business cards, I have that sentence that says, don't let anyone tell you that your dream is impossible. And I think that one of the things we have to remember as entrepreneurs, and I would almost say as women more particularly, is that that one person telling you that your dream is impossible is yourself quite often.
Yeah.
So don't let anyone tell you that your dream is impossible. It absolutely is possible. Jacqueline, it was a delight to have you. The good news is that I'm in touch with you regularly, so I can have more. And so anyways, thank you so much for having accepted this interview. I really have enjoyed it. And for our viewers and listeners, because it goes into a podcast format as well, audio and video, if you too want to make your dream come true, if you too have a life that you want to reinvent, you can go to my website to book a complimentary discovery consultation with me. And my website is agnesvanrhijn.com, and that is www.anyesvanrhijn.com. Thank you so much. Talk to you. Bye.